This now with H.A. Hellyer, who's a senior associate fellow at the Royal United Services Institute and joins us live from London. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. When you look at the overall outcome of the summit in Doha, have any collective concrete steps been taken in response to Israel's aggression?
Thank you for having me on the program. I think that the fact that the summit took place at all with this level of representation and speed is a step in and of itself. Of course, if the idea is to really transform the security architecture of the region, in that regard, very little has changed. But there's a recognition, I think, among those who were present that something does need to change in the medium to long term. Because indeed the Israelis have been acting with impunity in an environment of impunity for the past 2 years. And this latest attack on Qatar, which was widely condemned not only in the region but by the international community, including by the United States, I think is very telling in and of itself.
And that was one of the issues that was addressed, has been addressed rather, during Rubio's visit to Israel. He's also trying to revive negotiations, as we've heard from our correspondent. But how likely is it that Netanyahu will have good faith when they conduct a direct attack on the office where mediation efforts were led?
I don't think the Qataris are going to treat Netanyahu in the same way any longer. I think it's very clear, not only to the Qataris, but more widely, that mediation on the territory of the state of Qatar with the Israelis is not something that they can do any longer without really firm guarantees from the Americans that they would actually stop the Israelis from taking these sorts of steps. And I don't think that they trust that they will. You've seen reports of the last few days, contradictory reports, of course, but reports that indicate that the Americans did know that the Israelis were going to strike, that they did inform the Qataris, but they informed them too late. There's the discussion going on in the region now whether or not they could have alerted the Qataris earlier. Of course, the Americans say no, they alerted the Qataris as soon as they could. But be that as it may, whether they knew about it beforehand or not, the question will still arise. Well, what consequences are they going to apply upon the Israelis for taking this action? And so far, there are no consequences with the exception of this UNSC United Security Council resolution that did condemn the attack, of course, without naming the state of Israel. So I think that there's going to be quite a lot of cynicism in the wider region that the American security backstop is really going to be sufficient.
Nonetheless, Qatar seems very adamant to continue those mediation efforts. I also want to get your thoughts on the position that the U.S. is now publicly. How much trust do people have in the U.S. government when it comes to the leverage that it has over Israel in ending the war on Gaza, especially after we've been hearing conflicting reports from the U.S. administration, from the Trump administration, saying that they weren't informed by Israel on these attacks?
So I alluded to that already. But when it comes to the leverage, the United States has tremendous leverage when it comes to the state of Israel. They have leverage politically, they have leverage economically, they have leverage with regards to the provision of military supplies. So it's not a question of whether or not they have the leverage. The question is whether or not they're willing to use it. And in the past 2 years, they simply haven't done so. This war could have been ended a long time ago, and the direction of the war could have changed a long time ago. But the decision by the United States to not use that leverage, I think, is why we haven't just seen this devastating war on Gaza, but we've seen also attacks on Lebanon, on Syria, on Qatar, on Iran, and the feeling, I think, and on Yemen. I think the feeling in the region is that this environment of impunity will simply widen, increase, unless steps are taken that show to the Israelis that there would be consequences, that there would be a price to pay.
Okay, H.A. Hellyer, thank you so much for being with us here on TRT World and sharing that analysis with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.